And we are live. So thank you everybody for tuning in to season 2, episode 10 now, and it's the final episode of this season, although that's not to say we might not run for season 3 in the next semester, but certainly tonight this is the last in 10 seminar series for season 2 on international perspectives on corpus technology for language learning. And tonight we are honored to have Professor Laurence Anthony joining us from the Center for English Language Education in Science and Engineering, CELES at Waseda University in Japan. So the time difference is not too bad for him, but apologies for those people who are tuning in from Brazil at this ungodly hour, whereas in the UK, you probably just finished your lunch break and about ready to go to sleep in your office. Hi everyone. We are going to, first of all, get into the acknowledgement of country, which is something that in every public speaking situation in Australia, we like to acknowledge the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet, or in this case, the online space in which we meet. Paying our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country, while recognizing their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. Now, tonight we have our speaker, Professor Laurence Anthony, who's going to be addressing the challenges of data-driven learning through corpus tool design and give us all a wonderful introduction to the latest version of his incredibly popular and almost universally important platform, Antconc. For those of you who are not familiar with Professor Anthony's work, he's the currently director of the Center for English Language Education in Science and Engineering, running discipline-specific language courses for 10,000 students in the faculty at Waseda. His main research interests are obviously in corpus linguistics, educational technology, and English for specific purposes. He received the National Prize of the Japan Association for English Corpus Studies in 2012 for his work in corpus software tools, for which he is obviously most well known. And it's my great pleasure to hand over to Laurence today, who's going to train us all in the how the latest iteration of the Antconc legend is going to help address some of the challenges raised by practitioners and researchers working on data-driven learning. So thanks very much, Laurence. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much for that really nice introduction. I'm going to share my screen, and you should now be able to see my PowerPoint slides. Is that? Yeah. Can you see those okay, Peter?
We're all good.
Great, thank you. So thank you, everybody. It is really a great honor to be able to give this final talk of this series. If you've been to the others, you'll have seen that I've been to many of these, and I've really enjoyed all of the talks up till now. And so it's really nice that I can give my talk at the end of these. At the end of this series. So I'm going to also be discussing data-driven learning, but as Peter just said, I'm going to be also talking about DDL and how Antconc 4, the new version of Antconc, addresses the challenges that I see that we all face in this field. Now, because I am introducing a tool that I've developed, it will kind of sound a bit like a sales pitch in some sense. I'm really sorry about this. It's really hard to discuss my own tools without coming across like I'm trying to sell something. But right from the beginning, I can say, of course, these software tools are all freely available. And I hope you just get excited about them the same way that I get excited about these tools. Okay, so I'm going to start, just a second. I'm going to start with a brief introduction to DDL. Now, I know we've been hearing a lot about DDL over the last 10 weeks, but I want to give you just a bit of a slightly different perspective on it, my own perspective on what I think DDL is and its strengths. But today we're focusing mainly on the challenges in DDL, especially the challenges for the direct approach, where you have students in the room using Corpora and directly searching for things, and also some of the recent challenges resulting from technical developments in the field. So we'll look at these challenges, and then I'll show you how Antconc 4, which was recently released, it was released on Christmas Day, actually, in 2021. I hope I'll explain how Antconc 4 tries to address some of these issues. Now, you may not know what Antconc is, so for those who haven't seen it or heard about it, I will briefly introduce it and talk about its design concepts and its features and functions before I show you how I think this new software tool will address the challenges of DDL. Okay, so let's get started with some definitions and the strengths of DDL. So here's a definition of DDL, but kind of starting in a strange place. It's starting with DDL as an example of data science. So if you think of what data science is an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights from noisy, structured, and unstructured data and apply that knowledge and apply knowledge and actionable insights from data across a broad range of application domains. So if you think about what we're doing, we're trying to extract knowledge and insights from noisy, structured, and unstructured corpus data and apply that in language learning. So I see DDL as basically an example of data science. But it's also an example of active learning. So if you think what active learning is, this is a definition given by Michael Prince of Bucknell University. And he's not a language guy at all. He's a professional chemical engineering, where they also use active learning. So active learning is a process whereby students engage in activities such as reading, writing, discussing, or problem solving that promote analysis, synthesis, and evaluation of class content. So if you think what we're doing, we're also engaging in reading the concordance lines, discussing the concordance lines and the vocabulary lists, and trying to problem solve our language challenges and by promoting analysis, synthesis, and evaluation of corpus content. So, of course, active learning overlaps with collaborative learning and cooperative learning and problem-based learning. And these are all words that we've seen many, many times when we're discussing data-driven learning. So, I see DDL as an example of active learning. So a lot of people talk about, does DDL work? Well, it's kind of in some way a silly question to ask, because it's the same as asking if active learning works. And we know active learning works. These are some papers published a long time ago. This is like 2004 results. And you can see these effect sizes all show that active learning improves academic achievement, improves self-esteem, improves student attitudes, and so on and so forth. So we know active learning works, and that in that sense, we also know that data-driven learning works. So we don't really need more does DDL work kind of research. So I see DDL as language data science combined with active learning. So here's my definition from 2016. So DDL is learning how to create, search, analyze, and interpret generalized and specialized language databases. So creating, searching, analyzing, and interpreting language data. Okay. Now, of course, there are many, many definitions and understandings of what DDL is. And Tim Johns back in 1991 said learners as researchers or detectives. He often talked about learners, but didn't really talk much about what teachers did, but we could see teachers as facilitators of that research. And we also have lots of research showing that it is effective, and it's just one of many examples, the Bolton and Cobb paper of 2017, which was a meta-analysis of 205 DDL studies, which again showed good effect sizes for DDL. And we have work by Mizumoto and Chujo, who also showed it works with Japanese students. We have so much data that shows it works. It works. Okay, so why does it work? Well, we know there's a lot of strength to DDL. One of them is it allows you to analyze corpora, providing learners with a rich exposure to real language. It gives them an alternative to native speaker informants when they're not available. And it introduces a wide range, or it develops a wide range of cognitive skills like predicting, observing, noticing, and so on. And through interpreting corpora on the screen through a software tool, that can raise the learner's contextual and linguistic awareness, and it can reveal patterns and forms that are not obvious or visible in other language sources like dictionaries, like textbooks, So it really helps the student to get an understanding of language in a way that is not possible in other ways. And of course, working collaboratively with others through looking at the computer screen, working with the teacher to try and find answers to questions, helps the learners to learn how to learn, is what G et al. Said in 1996, and improve their self-esteem and ability to interact with others. And that improving self-esteem comes back to what I just had a few minutes ago with active learning. So, it's all great, okay, but why do we have so many people talking about the challenges of working with data-driven learning? And why have people perhaps not adopting this approach? So what are the challenges for the direct approach? And what are the challenges resulting from these recent technical developments? Okay, so to answer these questions, I want to come back to a really interesting paper written by Adele in 2010 called Using Corpora to Teach Academic Writing, Challenges for the Direct Approach. If you haven't read this paper, certainly do. It's really an interesting look at DDL and what are the problems that teachers and students might face. Now, it is written in 2010, but if you've been attending these sessions over the last 10 weeks or so, you will have seen the same points being made again and again by different speakers. So let's look at them. Okay, she talks about 7 challenges, and I've paraphrased and kind of edited them a little, but these are the main points that she was making. So the first challenge is finding suitable target discipline-specific corpora, finding the data. Because she says online corpora are limited, so where do the students get the data to analyze? Okay, and then it's a related problem, but creating custom corpora can be challenging and time consuming. So if the students have their own data, how do they get it into a corpus, and how do they get it into the software for analysis? And then maybe the key points as well are knowing what to search for in a corpus, knowing how to manage data overload when analyzing millions of results, and knowing how to incorporate those results from corpora in language learning, in learner language, in their own learner language. And then how to avoid a focus on surface level word phrase patterns. A lot of people think of corpus work as just looking at words and phrases. What about beyond the word? What about the paragraph level, the section level, the text level? And if you do use DDL in the classroom, you might quickly start focusing on just the technology, like getting the software to work, installing things, and that can be a problem. So how do we avoid a focus on technology over the actual language? So these are 7 points that she made. But I just want to kind of remind everybody, earlier in this series, Jablonkai, I hope I said that correctly, was talking about transforming language teaching with corpora, bridging research and practice. And she also talked about the challenges of data-driven learning. And I've got some highlighted notes here, but you can see it's technically challenging, time-consuming. Learners might be overwhelmed by the amount of data. Better suited for learners with proficiency of an intermediate level. The problem of computer anxiety because of the technological problem. So you can see there's kind of a lot of overlap there. Okay, so that's 7 challenges that Adele talked about, but there are 2 other challenges that we have, and one is just a technical development, which is the corpus size. If we look in the 1960s and 1970s, we were usually dealing with about a 1 million word corpus, like the Brown or the Loeb corpus. In the 80s and 90s, we started using 20 million word corpora or 100 million word corpora like COBILD and the British National Corpus. And in the 2000s, we start seeing these enormous corpora like the Bank of English and the Oxford English Corpus. I've plotted them here. You can see this huge growth. And I've actually stopped at the Oxford English Corpus of 2.5 billion words, because if I plot the Google Web trillion word corpus, it looks like this. And you can see all the others are completely dominated by this enormous size. Okay, so we have a corpus size problem. Software needs to work with bigger data sets now. And another technical development is the statistical complexity that is coming into a lot of corpus work. Not quite into data-driven learning yet, but as Larsen, Egbert, and Biber talked about in 2020, if you look at the research on corpus linguistics, there's an increasing use of statistical methods. And that's not always a good thing, of course. And in fact, if you were in the session by Tove Larsen, you'll have heard her talking about the perils of opaque measures and methods and the need for increased transparency. But she was talking at the time about many of these corpus tools not having quantitative methods that are transparent in terms of linguistic interpretation. So we have increasing corpora sizes, and we also have increasing statistical complexity to deal with. Okay, so a lot of challenges that we face in the field. And I've been seeing these developments and these challenges over a long period of time. And I see actually a lot of the challenges are not really core to DDL. They're really just a problem of technology. If we have a design of software that is easy to use and it can work with big corpora and easy to install and so on, then many of the problems of DDL can just disappear just because of the tool. So I've been developing a new tool, a new version of Antconc recently, and I've tried to incorporate a lot of new ideas to address these challenges. So let me talk about Antconc 4. Okay, so Antconc is just one of many of the tools I develop. If you go to my website, you can see it on the bottom here at laurenceanthony.net. And go to software, you'll see I've got about 20, I think 18 to 20 different software tools, and they are designed to take somebody from the raw data to the point of analysis. So I've got some data collection tools like Antcorgen and FireAnt. I won't talk about these today, but Antcorgen allows you to download corpora of research papers, and FireAnt allows you to download Twitter data, if you're interested in social media data analysis. And then I have some data cleaning tools, which you always need when you're working with raw data because of the noise in data. And then I've got some data annotation tools like part-of-speech taggers and annotation tools like AntMover. And TagAnt here is really, really powerful. I've made an update recently, so it now works with 18 different languages, including Chinese and Japanese, and of course English and French and German and so on. So you can part-of-speech tag your data and then analyze that. And then I have some data analysis tools like Antconc, Antword Profiler, and again FireAnt and Protan. So I'm going to talk today about Antconc because that's what we're all here for. So Antconc has been evolving over the last 20 years. It's almost exactly 20 years to the day that I released the first version. I think I released the first version on April 16, 2002. So almost exactly 20 years ago. Here's a screenshot of the very first version of Antconc, and it was used in the classroom. I built this, and it was very quickly adopted by a researcher in Osaka for technical writing classroom development. There's a technical writing DDL. So Antconc's always been a DDL tool. And you can see it's a really simple tool. It has just a concordancer. And it's not even called Antconc. It was called Conc for a few weeks until I realized somebody else had already made a tool called Conc, and I rapidly changed the name to Antconc, taking my family name. Okay, so version 2 came out a bit later, and you can see that version 2 started introducing the tools that we now see a lot in corpus work, like the concordancing tool and plot tool and clusters and file view and word lists and keyword lists. But it kind of looks a bit ugly, I think you'll all agree, a very dated look right now. So when I created version 3, I adopted this native application approach. So I built it for Windows, Linux, and Macintosh, but it hopefully had a modern look to it. I also added a few more tools, and effectively, these are the tools that are still in Antconc today. This tool was developed in Perl and TKX, which was fine at the time, but over time, Perl became outdated and it's almost a dead language now. And TKX became outdated as well, and it doesn't handle modern things like right to left languages, drag and drop, and so on. So Antconc 4, the new version, is kind of similar to the old versions in the tools that it has, but it is written in Python with the cute graphical interface, and it allows me to have a really modern, good appearance, but it also under the under the hood, I have a very, very fast database design. So a lot of things are now possible with the new version. Okay, just a quick look at how the evolution has been reflected in the downloads. So you can see in 2004, when I first started counting how many people downloaded my tool, it was about 1,300 or so. And you can see it kind of steadily increased. And for example, in 2018, there was 727,000 downloads. And then it kind of dropped the next year because probably people had downloaded the newest version. And when I release a new version again, then more people download it. So 600,000 downloads in 2020. Now, of course, this is not the true number because people just download it and give it to other people. For example, at Waseda University, every computer has Antconc in it, and that's for 50,000 students. So not all of them are using it, but in theory they could. So this is just downloads directly from my website. So I don't really know how many downloads, how many people use it in total. But just an interesting number here, I do know it's used in 140 countries, and the YouTube videos that I've created have been downloaded 500,000 times. So you kind of get an idea of the scale of this project. It's kind of nice to see. As I say, I don't know exactly who's using it, but Chris Tribble back in 2012 did a survey of Talc people. So these are often teachers who use Corpora and Corpus tools in the classroom, and he asked them what computer programs do they use, and this was the results. And Antconc, you can see, was about 17–18%. The second most popular tool back behind Corpus BYU, if you know this online Corpus, Coca and so on. And this was in 2012. And if you go to 2012, you can see this is how many downloads I had in 2012. I think there's a lot more now. So I would expect to have a higher percentage of use right now. But it's really hard to know exactly. So this is what Antconc looks like now. This is version 4, and this is what I'll be talking about from now and explaining how this addresses the challenges that we face. Okay, so let's just talk briefly about the design concepts before I talk about how it addresses the challenges of DDL. So the first design concept, and they're all related to DDL in some ways, is that it should be easy to find, easy to set up, and easy to use. And this applies to all users of Antconc, but especially for students in the classroom and teachers in the classroom. If they can't find it and they can't download it and they can't install it, they're going to have trouble. So Antconc is incredibly simple to find and use because it has an installer version or a portable version, and if you go to Google and type Antconc, you'll find it. There's also help guides and YouTube guides and so on. It also has to be safe and reliable, and because it has to be classroom proof. We can't take a software tool into the class and then have it crash in the middle of the class, because that would destroy the class and teachers wouldn't use it, students would get unhappy. So Antconc is really designed to be solid, and it doesn't crash in the class. If you've used it, I hope you will agree. So it has no viruses, of course. And we do get error reports from the community, and there's often bug fixes and updates, of course. So it's always updated. So one thing about Antconc, which is different from many academic projects, is it's constantly being monitored, constantly being updated, and it has to work in the classroom. And that's something that I really try and keep going with the tool. And it has to evolve as well, and we'll be talking about some of these evolutions from now. One thing about Antconc 4, which is an improvement over the previous version, Antconc 3, is it's now fast. A lot of people complained about the old version of Antconc as being a slow tool. It was okay for small corpora, just a second. It was okay for small corpora, but not so good for big data sets. But this is now not the case. Antconc 4 will work with 1,000-word corpora, million-word corpora, 100 million-word corpora, and even a billion-word corpus now. Somebody installed a billion-word corpus into Antconc recently, and it was fine. So that's something about the new version which is quite important. And it also has a comprehensive set of tools that you would want to use in a classroom setting. And finally, it's designed for a broad user base. and again, this applies to DDL in the classroom, students don't always have a Windows computer. They may have a Mac computer, they may have a Linux computer. So Antconc is designed for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And we may not have English students in the classroom. We may not even be teaching English. We might be teaching French or German or Arabic. So Antconc supports multiple languages through UTF-8 compliancy. And it also supports left to right and right to left languages. So that's really important. So that if you want to use it with Arabic or Hebrew or Japanese or Chinese, you can. So it's basically agnostic in terms of the language and the operating system that it works on. Now, there are some weaknesses because of this, and one is that it's designed for a broad user base. So it only has standard tools and statistics, not some of these kind of specialized tools and stats for a particular project. And it is a black box technology in the sense that it's freeware, but it's not open source. And we can discuss why I don't make it open source a bit later if you're interested to know. And it's also inflexible in the sense that I have to add the features. You can't kind of contribute features and modules and so on. So in that sense, it's a little bit inflexible. Okay, so let me just briefly talk about these features and functions and then come to the challenges. And you'll probably even see how some of the challenges are addressed with this very quick overview of the tools. So I'm going to start actually like I do in the classroom, in a DDL classroom setting. I often start in this way by looking at data. I have here a corpus of academic English that is built into Antconc. I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. But with students, I often start off by asking them, like, what are the most frequent words in your data? Or what do you think are the most frequent words in academic English? And that often leads to an interesting discussion about content words versus function words. And of course, when you look at the word tool of Antconc, or the word list tool, the most frequent words are, of course, the function words like the, of, and, to, and so on. So what we're not really interested in the frequent words, we're interested in the unusually frequent words in our target corpus compared with a reference corpus, and that's where the keyword tool comes in. So if you look at Antconc 4, you'll notice that now when you look at keywords, we see two corpora on the left here, the target versus the reference, and we can very quickly load in both and get a keyword list. So this list shows you the unusually frequent words in the corpus. Now you're going to look at this and think, whoa, that doesn't look like a set of keywords. It looks like a set of like random words. And this is because the keyness measure that we've commonly used, which is log likelihood, isn't very good at picking out interesting keywords. So Antconc 4 has introduced a new keyness measure introduced by Jesse Ekberg, Doug Biber, and colleagues called text dispersion keyness. And if we use text dispersion keyness on the same data, you can see perhaps that these are much more key words of academic language compared with this of, is, are, and so on. So Antconc 4 has various measures now, improved measures for detecting keywords. But of course, once we know what the keywords in the language are, we might then want to analyze. Oh, can we type in phrases? Yes, of course. I'm just showing screenshots now, but you can just type them in. So once you know what your keywords are, then you can start analyzing them and looking at them. So I've typed in here a word process in this academic language to see how process is being used. And when you were doing DDL, and for the last 40 years, this is how DDL has been done. You type in a word and you get this keyword in context view. And then traditionally you would scroll through this list looking for salient patterns that include that search word. But I hope you can all notice something radically different about this keyword in context view compared with every other corpus tool that we know to date. And that is that these results are automatically ranked by frequency pattern. They're not ranked alphabetically, which is what everybody seems to do. And I don't really even know why they do that. I've been thinking that alphabetically ordering of keyword in context results are meaningless. It just hides salient patterns. And you can see as soon as I type in the word process, the most salient pattern to the right is process of. And I now don't need to look any further down the list unless I want to see other salient patterns, because I can see here process of taking, process of taking, process of assimilation. And then we get these different ing forms, but we get process of being a salient use of this word. And when I demonstrate this in a couple of seconds, you'll see how powerful this ranking by frequency really is. But we can do other things, of course. We can not just search for the word in context, we can look for the position of the word. And Antconc 4 allows you to see the positions of word, the search, and of course, some more information about dispersion here. But if you can, I hope you can see this. You might see that there's two colors here. There's blue and there's red. Why are there two colors here? Because we can overlay our search results. So initially I typed in the word process and I got a plot of all the process appearances in the corpus. And then I typed in process of and overlaid those results. So I can now see that where process of appears in relation to process. So for example, in this file 8, there's only 4 occurrences of process and 3 of them appear with of, process of. I hope you can see all that. But if you can't, download the software and try it out yourself. You'll see this overlay function is quite cool. And of course, then you can click on any of these plots. You can click on a line, or you can click on a word in the keyword in context view and go to the original file and see how the word is appearing in context, in the full context of the file. Okay. Just quickly finish the last 3 tools. So sometimes we're interested in multi-word units. So Antconc has a cluster tool, and you can type in the word process of and see the word process of, but you can also see all the other clusters, 2-word clusters, where process appears in, process of and process and so on. You can also use the ngram tool and just see all 2-word chunks, or all 3-word chunks, or all 4-word chunks. And this can be a little bit noisy in the sense that it's not so interesting, of the, in the, to the. But as you increase the length of the ngram, you'll start seeing quite interesting patterns, like in the United States, in the case that, it is the case, in the context of, at the same time, and so on. And what Antconc 4 has is an ability to have open slot ngrams, so that you can see, for example, in the something that is a frequent pattern of in the something that. And if you double click on this, you can then see all the fillers of that slot. So in the case that, in the sense that, in the chapters that, in the fact that, that sounds a bit strange, but these are all the occurrences of the open slot filler. That's kind of useful. And then finally, we have a collocat tool, which shows the words that appear near the target word. So not next to it, but these are maybe 5 words to the left or 5 words to the right. So you can see we have process appearing in the neighborhood of learning. Maybe it's a learning process. Just a second. Maybe it's a learning process or a process of learning. Maybe it's a chemical process, a large process, the process of globalization, something like that. Okay, so that was a whirlwind tour of the 8 core tools of Antconc. And I hope you can already see, if you've used Antconc before, some of the differences between the old version and the new version. And if you've never seen Antconc before, I hope you can see that these tools could be quite useful in your classroom and with your students. Yes, a few steps up from 3. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that comment. Okay. But how does Antconc 4 really address these challenges? And I want to talk about this in a bit more. Oh, before I was going to do that, let me just quickly show you that I'm not just talking about Antconc. It does actually work. So let me just launch it here. Hope you can all see this. I'm just going to give a very quick demo. So you can see that Antconc 4 has an installer version. So you can just type it in, you can install it, and it will appear in your start menu on Windows and on Mac. And it looks like this, it'll appear like that. And one thing that you might have if you're ever trying to use a corpus tool in the classroom is like, oh, the display is so small, you can't see it and you can't use it for demonstrations. So Antconc has an ability to change the entire font system of the display. So I'm going to bump it up to 18. And if you do this, it doesn't just change the interface words, it changes the entire interface. You can see that the whole interface is now big and hopefully clearer for you all to see. Can you see that? So this goes across all the different tools now. Another huge change about Antconc 4 is that it has a built-in set of corpora. So students might be wanting to, it might not have their own data, but you can go to what's called a corpus manager, which is here. And in this corpus manager, it has a set of data that they can use. Now, just a second, let me pull that down. Okay. And you can see here we have lots of different data sets that students can just quickly double click on. This is 1 million words of English. Choose that. And now they're ready to go. And now they can search for their word list. As I just showed you a second ago, this is the words in this. This is the full 1 million words of American English that's built in. And if they wanted to do keywords, if they wanted to do a quick concordance of, say, the word happy, then here are the results. And again, as I emphasize, the results here are revolutionary in the sense that we don't scroll down to see the patterns of happy. The most frequent pattern of happy is happy to be. We can see that immediately. We have happy to be, happy to report, and then we have random sets of verbs that come after, and then we have happy and so on. So we don't need to scroll down to find the salient patterns. The most salient patterns appear at the beginning. And if I sort to the left, we'll also see the salient patterns to the left. And I guess nobody has an idea of what it is. I don't know what it is, but when we do a search, we see going to be happy, he to be happy, her to be happy, him to be happy, them to be happy. I didn't really think about that, but that's a real discovery that I've just done from this demonstration. So, so this is how you can start using Antconc in the class and just plotting like where does happy appear in the data. And this is, of course, 500 files, so it's a lot of data and a lot of results here. But you can see how it works. But more importantly, perhaps, is if students do have their own data, how do they load that data in? Well, that's kind of really simple. All you need to do is go to File, Create Quick Corpus, and then you just go to the files. So here's some student essays that I've got here. Here's 17 student essays that I want to load in and look at. I just open them like this, and now I can look at them. So here's the first essay, here's the second. It's actually an abstract in research writing, but you can see how quickly I could just load in those files. And now again, I can make my word list like this, and I can do my keywords. Oh, I need a reference corpus. So I go back to my corpus manager, choose a reference corpus, which is that 1 million words of English. I now have my student corpus at the top. I have my 1 million words as a reference corpus now. I've just switched the two, and now I can get my keywords like this. So no longer necessary to upload text files. Now you can just load Word files or PDF files as you like. So so you can see how easy it is to kind of just load in files, but having this corpus manager also gives you a lot of advantages. Now, I hope you can see this, that at the top are the built-in data sets, but at the bottom are my data sets, the ones that I've created myself. And I've got this student abstracts already built. I created this before, so I could just double click on that, get my database, and just load it into the main window. And now it's, did I do that? So I can just choose that and just a second, students. Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry. Target corpus is the student data. Yeah, that's right. And then the reference corpus is the 100 million words of general English. Now we're good. So you can see the student abstracts at the top, the reference corpus at the bottom, and we can get the same results again as I just did. So having a corpus manager as part of the system allows teachers and students to very quickly load in data and compare data and see what's going on. And I've actually got some huge databases, data sets in here, like this bio database is 100 research papers in bioscience. And I can just very quickly just click on this. This is now 600,000 words. Return to the main. Oh, I've done the same thing again, sorry. Target corpus. Choose my biodata. So I've got my target corpus as the biodata. My reference corpus is the American English. Return that. So now I've got my 600,000 word corpus for my target. I've got my American English for my reference. I can then do the same things again. So here's the word list, and here's a new keyword list. And now we see bioscience words appearing as our keywords because we have a bioscience database in use. Okay, so I hope you can see that all of these tools are kind of working really fast and smooth. So we don't have to wait anymore, even when we're dealing with million word or 10 million word data sets. Okay, so let's come back to challenges, which is the main point of this talk. Okay, so the first challenge of DDL is finding suitable target and discipline-specific corpora. And I've kind of addressed this by using what I've just been demonstrating, the Antconc Corpus Manager. So it has built-in data, and it also has a user library. And by having this manager, students can very quickly load in pre-built data sets. They can, if the teacher creates a data set, they can then just very easily give it to the students as a single file database that the students can then load in themselves and keep for themselves. So it's a repository of data sets that hopefully will grow in time. So if you have data sets that you think are interesting and students might want to use, or you package an existing database into this format, we can just upload it for students to use. So just now we have AMIO6 and BEO6, but the base corpus and the BOR corpus, which are British academic spoken English and written English, are coming soon to this interface. I already have permission. So your contributions as well could be great here. And of course, there is Antconc, if you know about this tool. This is a multidisciplinary research article collection tool that I've built. And so if you want to find very discipline-specific data, you can just go and use that tool and download the data and load it into Antconc. Creating custom corpora as well is kind of simple, really, through this corpus builder. You just open the file and just read it. Because Antconc works with doc files and PDF files and text files, there's no real concern with students loading their data anymore. They just drag and drop it into the interface, basically. So student papers, ebooks, copy and pasted articles, they're all easy to now load in. So I don't think this is much of a challenge anymore. If you have the raw data, you just drop it in. Oh yes, and somebody's asked, does this version work on Mac? Yes, Antconc works on Mac, Linux, and Windows computers. And just as a side point, it is code signed and notarized by Windows and Mac, which means that you won't see any security warnings on any system now. It's all been approved by Mac and Linux and Windows. Okay, the third challenge, if you remember, was knowing what to search for in a corpus. And that is a challenge, but Antconc does have lots of tools for language, true language discovery, meaning you don't have to search for anything. So the word tool, as I demonstrated, shows you the most frequent words, and the keywords show you the most unusually frequent words. And the open n-grams also show you patterns and phrases that are just in the data without knowing what to search for. So if your students really don't know how to start, I often recommend starting with a word list, starting with a keyword list, starting with an n-gram list. And through those discoveries, they can start looking for things to analyze later with the quick concordance and the plot tool and so on. So if you haven't taught DDL before and you're not sure how to get started, definitely just ask students to think what words are in their data and ask them to create a word list and a keyword list and go from there, and an n-gram list. Okay, what about the classic problem, managing data overload. I think the problem has always been that the quick concordance tool is awful at showing data. So Antconc has this idea of quick patterns that show you the ordering by pattern frequency. And as soon as you order by pattern frequency, there is no data overload anymore because the most salient patterns appear at the beginning. So you search like on Google. You just search, the most important results appear at the beginning. You don't have to scroll through thousands of lines to see what patterns there are. The most frequent patterns are at the beginning. Now, there is also paging and filtering in Antconc 4. So if you have thousands and thousands of results, you don't have to scroll through them. You can page through them. And you can also have a random set of, say, 50 or 100 hits and order them by pattern frequency as well. So through the patterns and paging and filtering, I really see no issue with data overload anymore, especially because of the quick patterns idea. And as I did mention about paging and filtering, but also ranking, it is done through best practices now. So all tools show frequency and range. They're all tools have normalized values. And coming back to what Turva was talking about, all the statistics in Antconc are best practice, meaningful statistics that I would hope that she would also find to be useful. Okay, what about number 5 then? Incorporating results from Corpora in language learning. A key challenge, right? The students they get their results, but what do they do with them? I would still say that the Antconc quick pattern approach brings a revolutionary change to DDL. Because we're ordering by frequency, it becomes immediately obvious what the most salient patterns are. And if students don't know how to use a word or don't know which words appear with a word, just look at the results and it's obvious. It's very like Google search in the sense that you look for something, you find it. So I think this massively improves how to use a corpus tool in the classroom. It does reveal some extremely surprising results as well. Remember just a few moments ago, I searched for happy, and we had happy to something on the right, but on the left, what comes before happy and be happy is the most frequent pattern. And I wouldn't know that as a teacher even, and students obviously wouldn't know that. And through this approach, I think they can learn a lot. So it hugely simplifies the DDL process in the classroom. Oh, and also, if you use the plot tool and the range tools, the plot tool, and look at range values, the number of files where the results appear, you can start identifying not only words of interest, but texts of interest. So if you look at this result here, you can see that looking at process of, you can see that some people are using it quite a lot. Some files use it quite a lot. So maybe that's a file of interest, a text of interest. So you can click on that file and look into that file and see what's happening. So students will get a better idea of individual variation, and maybe even find outlier text, unusual text, patterns that they shouldn't be following, perhaps. Okay, 6 and 7, nearly finished. And I see the time is also nearly up. So what about addressing the challenge 6, going beyond surface level word phrase patterns? That is a challenge, but Antconc has text level, subtext level, and word level processing. Now, we all know about the word level processing, keywords, words, quick, and so on. But you can also save your corpora with multi-level metadata. I'm not going to talk about this today because it's a little bit complicated, but you can save your data with parts of speech, with lemma, and with text level annotations. You could save text as a paragraph of a certain type or a sentence with a certain rhetorical function, and then search for that later. So you can do part of speech searching in a very transparent way, and you can combine all searches with metadata queries. So you could do things like look for adjective noun patterns in novels, for example, or however as used in abstracts, just through the metadata of the corpus. Okay, last one. Focusing on language and not technology. Well, as I said at the beginning of this talk, Antconc is designed to be classroom proof, which means, well, and that has a few meanings. First, in terms of packaging and cost, it works on all operating systems. It's digitally signed and notarized by Windows and Mac OS. It's very simple to install and it's free. So students don't have to focus on getting the software. They just download it and use it. It's also designed with this quite simple, clean interface. I have the scaling of fonts and drag and drop to allow easy to use, allow demonstrations to flow easily in the classroom. If you're going to put a computer software on the screen and try and walk through the students through doing something, it needs to have this scaling of fonts and needs to be clean and easy to use. And of course, it also has this speed and scalability feature now. So it can work with corpora of thousands to billions of words. So students don't have to worry about the size of their data set. They don't have to worry about the computer they're working on. They don't have to worry about the cost of the application to install it. They don't have to worry about security and warnings anymore. It just kind of just works in that sense. So I've been really trying to focus on getting away from away from technology and allowing students to focus on the language itself. So to summarize this rapid tour of Antconc 4, so data-driven learning itself is a combination of language, data science, and active learning. Yeah, learning how to create, search, analyze, and interpret general and specialized databases. It's an effective approach in second and foreign language learning. It works. We don't need to spend any more time discussing if data-driven learning works or not. We know it works. We also don't need to, we shouldn't be talking about, does it work with beginners? Does it work with experienced students? Does it work like that? Because I think most of the challenges and problems are related to technology, not the approach itself. If the software is simply designed and easy to use, of course, kids can use it. Junior high school, senior high school students can use it. But they can, if a child can use Google search, they can use data-driven learning to help them in their language learning. So data-driven learning is often considered to be challenging and better suited to intermediate and advanced learners because teachers expose students to tools designed for other purposes and other users. They're designed for corpus linguists and lexicographers and materials developers. They're not designed for students, not designed for kids. And the traditional core quick tool that everybody has talked about in every week of this seminar, I would guess, almost every week, is extremely poor at revealing patterns in language. It's almost the worst way to show patterns in language. It's just a random list ordered alphabetically. So we shouldn't be using it. We should use pattern frequency. So Antconc 4 attempts to address these core challenges through the design and so on, and hopefully allow DDL to be used in a much broader range of contexts and with a much broader range of users. And I will finish there. Thank you.
And we will finish there. Thank you so much, Laurence. We have so many questions that have come through, which we'll address in a moment. We averaged out about 195, 196 participants, so just like a couple short of that 200 mark throughout. But that is just fantastic that on a Friday evening that we were able to get this much interest, and it's a testament to the speaker, it's a testament to the software. And if you follow the chat throughout the talk, it worked kind of like every time there was a new function mentioned, it was like Guitar Hero, you know, in the beginning, they kind of start off like a little bit warmed up, and then in the end, the crowd are like, yeah, like that. I think that's the way that it was going.
I wasn't watching it, unfortunately. I'm going to save the chat, so I'll definitely be watching it. I'll be reviewing all the chat later.
Yeah, it really, it was a bit like Rock Band Hero or something like that. Titania's just put her video on. You didn't beat Titania's record, so Titania is like the unofficial, well now the official record holder for most number of participants in any of these sessions so far. I think we're up to like 225. So I don't know who we're going to have to bring in next semester. There you go.
As we all know, with corpus data, it's not the size, it's the quality.
Well, there you go. Thanks so much.
Everybody, thank you so much for coming today.
Your talk was of any higher quality than Tatiana's, but well done, for breaking the record there. So what I'm going to do here is to stop the recording and thank everyone who's watching in YouTube land or anyone who might be watching from our website, to thank Laurence and to download Antconc. Check out the inbuilt Corpora, check out your own Corpora with the tool. It is the standard tool in corpus linguistics for those people who are willing to give it a go. And we are very pleased that this new version is helping to address many of the issues that are specific to the DDLers out there. And I certainly think that it has done that in a number of ways. So we're going to finish the recording here. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you, I'm sure we will see you very soon for a season 3.
Are we gonna? Do we have time for any questions?
We do. So, yeah. But I'm just gonna kill the recording here, Laurence.
Okay. I see.
Now. So, thanks everyone. I'm sure that we will be back. If not, we'll let you know. But I think we will be back. The train does not stop rolling. Okay. So we'll catch you later. Bye for now.